Good evening, everyone. Kobe Powell, Chief of Police. Here to discuss our headquarters building and the hiring of an architect to help us improve our current facility. The current headquarters of the Greenburgh Police Department was built in 1956. At the time of construction, the department employed 63 men and had 12 vehicles. And that 63 men is to make a distinction between having male and female officers and need for locker rooms for both. But the department employed 63 men, had 12 vehicles. Today, the department maintains a workforce of approximately 170 employees and 90 vehicles. During a needs assessment conducted in 2006, several areas that required improvements were identified and still need to be addressed. Some areas identified include the building's HVAC system, elevators, the boiler, plumbing, inadequate electrical service, the retaining wall in the parking lot, and ADA compliance, to name a few. Approximately 5 years ago, a group was established to begin searching for a suitable location for a new police and court facility. This group consisted of members of the Greenburgh Police Department, the court administrator, DPW commissioner and deputy commissioner, former Councilman Ken Jones, and other residents. After 5 years and more than 40 properties, only 2 locations showed potential, but ultimately did not work out. Despite the number of properties viewed, one avenue that was not thoroughly explored was a professional evaluation of our current facility at 188 Tarrytown Road. A comprehensive master plan to bring our existing location up to code and into serviceable condition now seems like our best and most realistic option. A request for proposals was issued on March 1st, 2024, attracting responses from 11 different firms. On March 18th, 2024, a walkthrough was conducted at our headquarters, and at least 10 of those firms attended. The submitted proposals were reviewed, producing 4 finalists, each of which was interviewed by the town board. The police department and the court are adjacent to each other, with very limited space. The purpose of this RFP was to hire an architectural group that specializes in emergency services facilities to review the current site and determine a cost-effective solution to address several of the needs as outlined in the needs assessment. This is even more crucial with our current need to make essential repairs, as it would be unwise and fiscally irresponsible to make repairs to portions of the building that may subsequently have to be removed or demolished. It is with all these things in consideration that we need professional assistance and a plan for moving forward at our current location. Obviously, Commissioner Duquesne is here, considering what he does for the town. Commissioner Duquesne, Captain Valentine, and Detective Marino, they were a part of the group that started working on this 5 years ago. So, I'm sorry. So, while I have been brought in and I believe up to speed, they do have the lived experience of this problem. And that's just a summary of what we were looking to do, hoping to do. And I guess I'll now pass this over.
Just a couple things I wanted to add to that. Thanks, Chief. When Captain Valentine and Chief Powell approached me about the need to tackle the challenges at 188 Hillside Avenue, there were 2 things that struck me as very complex. Number 1, the challenges that they face, and then number 2, the planning and the fiscal challenges that you face as a town board. So we know we've got a very difficult site with a lot of needs, but they're expensive. So how do you budget for them? So our mission really was, we don't know that we can go out and get an architect and say, please do A, B, and C, right? And because we don't know if A should be done first, or if A and B should be done first, or A, B, and C should be done at once, or break them up. Therefore, the approach was really to phase it, structure it as was described through this RFP, and to really start with a master plan so that you have concepts of what reasonably can be done at 188 Tarrytown Road. You have order of magnitude costs for perhaps a multi-phase project so that you can say to yourselves, we need to bond or we don't. We need to bond for A, but we may not need to bond for B. So with all those variables, this seemed to be the proper approach and go the master plan route, which the next steps will be, yes, once we have a roadmap through a master plan, will be to use the architect to then actually do construction drawings. But we can't get to construction drawings without this document. And the only other thing I'd like to add is I know there's going to be some discussion about potential for off-site solutions. And I just would like to add that there's many variables there. We're 18 square miles. There's infinite amount of sites out there that, could be looked at, and many were. But what the town owns and controls is 188 Terrytown, so admittedly, the RFP was geared towards that. But having said that, this RFP and the response we have from a preferred architect does lend to the flexibility to take a look at some outside sites in a limited capacity. They're not real estate brokers, but they will work with us, and if a preferred site is identified off-site, they can also give order of magnitude there so that where at least order of magnitude, it's prudent to advance things to the next level, or think about advancing them to the next level.
I would add that some part of that order of magnitude is accessibility. So the current site is accessible to major roadways and major highways. So just to give a broader picture, we would want to be certain that our officers have that accessibility, and so if anyone thinks that we can put it anywhere within that 18 square miles, that is a consideration, so that is a little bit limiting.
The issue that, I have is, when we had the interviews, to me, what stood out was the suggestion that some of the firms had saying we should move the courthouse, out of the existing, police headquarters. And I think that makes an awful lot of sense, and I think that's something that, is doable. We have $7 million in cash right now that we saved up, so we could spend $7 million without going for a referendum just for the courthouse. So I'm sort of wondering, if we looked at this and said our first goal is to move the courthouse, out of the existing location, then the police headquarters would have the whole, could have the whole campus. That to me is something that is really doable and could be done, relatively quickly. And I'm wondering if we could get if we're going to be hiring an outside firm, if we could, instead of getting them to come up with all these pie-in-the-sky ideas, just focus on, how much space do we need for the courthouse, and, basically, if the police have the entire headquarters, campus as, one option, what could you do with, what could we do at that site? To me, that would be the easiest.
The thing is, Mr. Finer, and you used the word focus. Sorry. The thing is, Mr. Finer, you used the word focus. We are trying to focus what is within our control. Our building is within our control, speaking for the police department. The court is a separate town department, even though we share a finite space, so to speak. When the firms that were interviewed made mention of, if we move the court, of course, that is the simplest and easiest way to free up a ton of space. At the same time, it may not be the most realistic option or the option that we can pursue the fastest. So the thing is, when they come and they actually look at our building for us, look at the property for us, the whole point of it is to get ideas, not a casual, this would be much easier if we just move the court. It's a statement, it's not a plan. The point is to get a plan so we can address the needs of our building and then move forward. If that plan includes the court, great. If it has to exclude the court, we will at least have it. We'll have likely a few options, and then we can make a decision, the board can make a decision on the option that is best, so we can move forward and do this because it needs doing. And again, these gentlemen here have been involved in this process for going on 5 years now, myself about 2.5. And, it's a simple thing to say, if we just move the court, but it's really not that simple. We need to let them come in and do what we would like to hire them to do, so we can have that as an option and then a plan for it, but perhaps have other options that might be more feasible or more cost-effective, or maybe that we could accomplish more expediently.
Yeah, but Supervisor, I think as both Garrett and the chief both laid out, the plan is to have a plan. We have an idea in our minds, and I don't disagree with you about the potential benefit of that particular plan, but we want to see all the plans and decide altogether what makes the most sense for the court and the police department. And that's why we have bring in an expert who will do that for us, so that we don't have to just surmise, well, what might be. They're going to give us options, they're going to tell us the pros and cons of these options. So that's the beauty of hiring someone who does this work.
Right, but
you know.
And I would say that the use of pie, quote-unquote, pie in the sky is a misappropriation of that term, because this is not at all pie in the sky. The consultant will look at all options, either leaving everything on site, and there are some benefits to that logistically in terms of the interface between the police station and the courthouse, and also moving the courthouse separately. But that is part of the determination that they are going to make. One other point is that, well, the upfront expense, by dividing it this year and a couple of years down the road, may seem like one concept. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but it will inevitably cost more, because there is economy of scale about doing this single project in one fell swoop, in one location.
Right. The only other concern that I have is I'm trying to be, like, take worst-case scenarios. I know that residents are concerned about the taxes. And I also understand that if we say, in an ideal world, we're going to have a beautiful new police headquarters, a beautiful new court, that's $100 million. It's never going to fly.
Didn't fly last time, it's not going to fly
No, but I'm saying
again.
it's not going to fly. So I sort of feel that if we basically come up with a plan, and if we say to the group that's going to be studying, this is our budget, this is how much we're willing to spend, and we're not going to spend more than that, then I feel that their expectations are going to be more manageable, and there's a better chance we could get something through. And the reason
But to that point, it makes sense. It makes sense, but I think what you need to see is what the options are. Let them come and say, here is cost one, here is cost two, here is cost three. Let us bring those options. Let me just finish, and let them sit there. Sorry, Francis. But let them bring to us. Let us not say, okay, I have $10 and this is all you can make. We want to see what we can get. And maybe there are ways that we can, especially if we do present that to the community, to say, this is what's needed, this is what the cost is going to be, so we can get buy-in from it. But to shut them off at the top, that just doesn't make sense. That's not just, doesn't make sense.
And if the proposals are all too expensive, we say, well, you got to come down, we can't afford that.
There's negotiation, and that's what you do.
spending money
It's
right
not
now
only a
on-
negotiation, it's how you best manage that process in terms of, okay, we can't afford this. What
Absolutely.
recommendations
And that's what the
can be
options are.
made to reduce the cost? But let's see what the whole thing
them
is. And
come
remember,
back
their
with it.
budget
Cut them off at
numbers.
the knees.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And
Yeah.
no, I cut off,
Councilman
I
Sheehan.
cut Francis Sheehan off, so I apologize.
So Paul, what dollar amount would you put on moving the courthouse away?
Well, probably the dollar amount would probably be under $15 million.
And how do you come up with that number?
What? Well, I spoke to Rich, I spoke to Frank Morabito, and, the thing is, they've shown
Not
me,
contractors.
some modular buildings for the courthouse.
And where would you locate it?
There's options, but we could be, that's
But
what.
this is why it's 5 years, it's these,
No,
what we're trying to do is to try and actually pin down the feasibility of doing some of these things. We had presentations 5 years ago, we paid somebody to go out, and they looked at, 48 properties or something like that? And narrowed it down to 2, what seemed to be viable, and they weren't, right? And so if now you're saying, well, there might be some site someplace that wasn't explored during that original time, well, let's actually hear what it is, as opposed to there may be In the meantime, we're clearly got a problem with our police station and our courthouse as well, for that matter.
I'm not,
And so this seems like a viable, we never did this. We didn't do it before because there was somebody that supposedly was interested in the police station courthouse property. You know, it's the gateway of Greenberg, it's not too far from the White Plains train station. We had all those kind of things going for us. And then, with that rock, it's really not worth much. Why not give this a shot?
I'm not saying don't give it a shot. I'm just saying to me, I'm like 100% sure, not 99.9% sure that if we focused on moving the courthouse out, and that would be our focus for the next year, and then the courthouse, it would free up space at the police headquarters. Basically, once the courthouse is out, the police would have more space.
But I think you're putting the cart before the
no,
horse. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I think this discussion should come when we come back and hear what the recommendations are, and then we can say, okay, it makes sense to move the courthouse outside and have the police station used for overflow when we're doing the construction or whatever it turns out to be. But the fact that we're saying that just go ahead and move the courthouse, we don't know what we need to do. Chief, I'm sorry, because you kept looking at me.
I'm sorry.
Understand, moving the courthouse out does not solve the ADA issues with the existing building.
No, but we can.
So just saying we have the existing building and more space for the courthouse doesn't really address the issues. And there's issues with wiring. You name the infrastructure issue, we have it with that police department. And as the chief mentioned, it was not made for the almost 300% increase in occupancy that it has now.
And the technology as a whole has changed. So what we were doing back in 1956, we're not doing in 2025.
We also have a need for essential repairs, and without a plan, we make those repairs, we put off making those repairs because we're waiting for whatever happens with the court to happen with the court, if that becomes the plan. And then ultimately, when we go back to the building to address the issues of the building after making those repairs, we could throw good money after bad, undoing work that the town spent money for in the building because we did not plan out how to approach it intelligently. This is a plan to approach our needs intelligently. So we can't deviate or forego that plan because it seems simpler to figure out what to do with the court first.
And may I say also, long-term, I would like to posit that conceivably, if we were to move the courthouse away and inhabit the whole space for the police department, you might be talking about more physical space than the police department actually needs, and then you have the courthouse needs. So in effect, you would be paying for the upkeep over time of more square footage than you would need necessarily, and that will cost more on a yearly basis for the town and for the residents of the town who are paying the taxes.
Does anybody feel, all I was really trying to say is, I'm like concerned that we're going to have a study and they're going to come up with like the Taj Mahal.
Why do you keep saying pie in the sky, Taj Mahal?
That's what I'm
We
worried
Taj Mahal
are
and
all
the pie
very
in the-
concerned about costs
Yes.
sitting here.
That's
Well,
what I'm
worried.
we're worried
They're
too.
not.
You're not the only one who's
But
worried.
I'm not criticizing. All I'm just saying is that I'm wondering if, when we hire the firm, if we could give them like some sort of
We have-
ballpark
we
figure
We
of
already
the dollar
had that
amount.
discussion.
We had-
Remember, we've
yeah.
already talked
But
to
what's
them
the
when they came
dollar
and
amount
spoke to
that
them.
we-
No, we didn't talk about dollar. You
No
can't talk
dollar
about
amount.
dollar.
Let them come back with something so we know what we know, so we
But
know.
that
what
we have a
need to do going
limited budget.
forward.
They know we have a limited budget.
But it's-
That
And
we're
he
not
made it
spending all
clear.
of it.
Look,
Yeah.
Garrett's laughing, because I mean, he's already had that
No,
conversation.
it's
let
just the
the
terms
commissioner
Taj Mahal,
speak.
pie in the sky. The philosophy of this RFP is cost effectiveness cross-referenced with feasibility. That's what's driving this, and that's going to be their mission.
And that
So
was
they're
part
on
of-
an eight-month timeframe for a $135,000 contract. So our goal is fourth quarter this year is to have a roadmap in the town board's hands so that you can make real decisions about solving their needs.
That makes sense.
That is, to me,
Let me.
That makes
way to
sense.
go.
And part of that plan may be that we have to temporarily move the court to another location temporarily so that it does not hamper whatever is going to go at the police station. But we don't know because we're not the experts, and that's why we need this firm. And the longer we delay it, and the longer we put ourselves at risk of being found in violation for our having this police station, having the infrastructure that it does.
The other question that I have, and I spoke to Mayor Kavulian, who's here, is I feel that since the court is in the A budget rather than the B budget, that if we move the courthouse to another location, which I think we'll eventually do, that we provide the villages with space in the courthouse for storage or staffing, whatever, what their needs are, and that's something that should be reviewed, as well as perhaps look at a shared service agreement where we could move to share some of the administrative, costs of the court with the understanding that the villages would keep all the revenue that they're currently keeping. Because in the past, when, I brought up consolidating the courts, the villages are paying for town court and they're also paying for a village court. So they're paying for two courts. So they might as well, if they're paying for two courts, they might as well get some value and benefits from having a court.
They do, though.
No, but they're really not, because they're not, because they have their own court. It's duplication. So if we want to move gradually towards consolidation of the court, I think we should move towards consolidation of the courts, gradually, but the sticking point is going to be the villages need and depend on revenue. So if we could if they continue to be able to keep the revenue that they're getting from tickets, then I sort of feel that we could gradually move towards consolidation. So one of the thoughts I had was we might want to look at a shared service grant with the villages if the villages are interested. Only if the villages are
Well, that
interested.
certainly has some validity going forward, but the bottom line is we have the expense and the need to do this construction. And in your capacity, Mr. Supervisor, as the financial person, I'm wondering if you have done an analysis of what the costs are.
Can you move your microphone away a little bit?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. I'm wondering, is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Well, what I was saying is, in your capacity as supervisor, part of which is the financial person for the town, I wonder if you've done an analysis to determine what the costs are, very finitely, and if we need to look at that more closely, that would be very helpful. But if we can have some sort of breakdown, that would, rather than a broad overview, not based on any factual information, it would be very helpful for us all to make the decision.
I think this is part of the, we talked about focus, and here we are now on a diverted topic, right, as to what will happen should the villages decide not to have their courts and they want to use our courts. Let's actually, we put that request out many times, because it really doesn't make sense to me that the villages have a separate court when they're paying for the town court. But right now, we need this study. Let's focus on the study and get that going, and we can have these discussions and while this is proceeding. But I don't want to get bogged down in red herrings and, what are the topics you want to bring up at a time where we have a very focused purpose in having this study, and that is the feasibility of doing any of these things.
Right, but
I believe the chief
want to say to us, they would like to have space in there. Well, that's something that we could put into what the request is. But right now, we're holding up adopting the passage of this study.
I believe the chief had something to say too, or I'm sorry, you finished, Councilman Sheehan?
Yes, I am.
This is hopefully my last comment. I would just like to ask the board, we have an issue that we are looking for a means to address. I don't want the issue that we have needlessly delayed by combining it with other issues. The court, the villages, again, if we get the architectural firm to look at the property, and Plan 1, 2, and 3, best options, all include somehow moving the court, at least then we have an expert opinion that's suggesting that. As it stands right now, adding all these other concerns and issues into the equation is simply just going to delay what we need to do, and it's not necessary
First
at
of
this
all,
point in
I
time.
support that, Chief.
I
I
disagree
support that.
because I don't believe that, we're looking at delaying. We've had 10 years or more of experiences, trying every single, option. And it hasn't, nothing's worked so far. So one of the reasons it didn't work was because of the process, because people felt, for example, the last time, we had a plan, Dan, we all worked together on moving the police court, but we didn't notify the villages, and they, got really angry, and the whole thing fizzled in like a week. So my feeling is that if we could, when we're pursuing this, if we could recognize that if this is going to be paid, if part of it, only the courthouse is being paid for in the A budget, the police headquarters in the B budget, but we know that there's two things that have to be done. One is address the police and one is address the court. So if we basically could figure out ways where the villages feel they're coming out ahead, and we're doing something positive for the villages, giving them more space, more room, perhaps looking at shared costs that could save.
Well, why don't you do the financial analysis,
no,
Mr. Supervisor,
Yeah,
and then let's
no,
take it from there
No,
to see
yeah,
how
so
we
one
can
of us-
come
I
up
mean,
with some
but
shared
no,
I'm not-
expenses.
This is just, I'm just trying to my job and our job is to get something accomplished. So it's not
That's
basically.
what we're trying to do.
And we're all, nobody here is not trying to get something accomplished. So I'm trying to, so the way I looked at it is I said, we have money that's been saved up in the A budget for the court. So we don't even have, we might be able to do a good chunk of this without even going to the bond market just for the court.
But that money's not going anywhere. Let's
Right,
do the
it's not-
study
let's
first.
do the study.
Most of that money.
To me,
Yeah, we did.
no, but to me, that's like the easiest approach.
How much money?
But he spent it down,
We have over
so-
7 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know to you it's the easiest,
I do want to
but
correct something. May I could just, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. You keep saying, the last thing failed, because we didn't contact the villages. The group that you were working with, Paul, on coming up with the police station renovations, actually, and you have a legal opinion, different town attorney, that the villages had to pay for our police station, even though they had their own police station. And, one of the things that goes to Joe Danko's credit, when we first put him on as an interim, is within a week, he said, I have some serious issues with this. And within 2 weeks, he said, there's no way that could be correct. And that caused such tension between the villages.
Ill will.
I mean, we had
Sure
a
did.
relationship with the villages up to that point, and then that was like, oh, here's the town going again.
Exactly.
And when, we learned about it.
After the
At
fact.
the same time,
At the
the town
villages.
board learned about it, at the same time, speaking with bond counsel and our new town attorney. And so that's why that one just fell totally apart. There were even postcards that were mailed out in advance saying there was going to be a referendum. And that referendum indicated that the villages would have to pay for our police station, but the Westchester County Police Act clearly showed that couldn't be possible. And it was Joe Danko, our new town attorney, who pointed that out, and bond counsel confirmed it, and this was dead in the water. So it's not, hey, we didn't reach out to the villages. What was told to the villages was just totally wrong. So we have to get it right? That's what the villages and everybody else in the unincorporated area expects of us. Let's get it right. And someone would put at the end of that for a change, but I'm not going to. But let's just get this one right. And the way to do that is to have this feasibility study.
Okay.
Okay?
thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Did Nancy want to, Nancy, if you wanted to say anything, you could have my seat.
She agreed with you. She smiled. Okay. You
And
saw that, okay.
that's Mayor Kabulian, who is here listening in
Thank you. Happy New
and
Year.
representing the VOC.
No, representing
representing the Village of
Thank you
Ardsley.
so much.
I will report back to the VOC, though.
Appreciate you,
very
appreciate you, Mayor.
much.
Thank
You
you.
asked if I reached out to the court.
Oh, they called you
And
back?
I found an email that I sent to Anu
Oh, okay.
on December
She was,
11th.
She said she couldn't
was termed-
attend. I remember she responded she could not attend.
Right,
Okay,
but I
that's
also asked her to advise all the judges and offered
Oh, okay.
to have a presentation.
Was there
for
any
the courts,
follow-up after
for the
that?
judges. No, there was
Oh,
no
okay,
follow-up.
okay.
But I just, it was
I will only add to what Fran.
You have to come up, we can't, you have to come up,
I will
please.
only
Thank-
add.
Wait, you have to come to the mic. Thank you.
I will only add to what Councilman Sheehan said was
Your name,
that,
please?
Nancy Kabulia, Mayor of Ardsley, thank you, is that the villages actually didn't learn about the police department being put into the A budget until we all received the postcards in our mail. So we were never actually informed of it before the postcards were sent out.
Yeah, we learned at the same time that they
Yeah.
sent.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
okay.
I'm just going to add one other point. Sorry.
You can stay.
Just one other point, sorry.
Come on.
Now that you have
A
me.
little insulted, you don't want to sit in my seat.
Oh, which one is your
It's not there,
seat?
they took it away
They took it away.
today.
Just one other point. Our court, in your thought processes, I believe you have to go through this study. I think that's the proper thing to do, and you have to look at all options, your police department, your court, and all of that. I will tell you that in thinking about this, a lot of the village courts are overrun. We don't have the space. We don't have the space for people to come. We don't have the space for our court to hold court. We don't have office space. I know other villages have similar problems. So in long-term thinking here, I do believe that this is a possibility for consolidation in the long term.
Agreed.
So if that could be part of the thought process when you look at the overall planning.
That's excellent, thank you.
We
That's a
appreciate
good
that.
idea.
That's-
Okay.
The only thing is, we would have to, we don't want to overbuild the building, and then, we build for six villages to be part of the courthouse. It'd be nice if, when you meet with the VOC, what's the likelihood of that happening? Because otherwise, you're going to be paying for a courthouse that's oversized that you may not be using.
I agree with that 100%, but I do think that we have to look at these things very long-term. I think that, each village has one, if not two clerks. We have one, if not two court officers. We both all have two judges. I think that, it's not, it will take time to think about this. I know for the village of Ardsley, it does have a revenue stream to it that, we would like to keep. And I think it's important for us to keep. It does help our budget. It's something I think we could think about going forward on how the revenue is distributed. I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that there's only, maybe the courts can utilize space, not simply to have them all consolidated, but maybe there is consolidation in the clerk's office or other areas. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here without lots of thought process going into it, but I do think that it's something that should be thought about and for the long term.
And at a certain time, we can have a work session and we can invite all 6 of the mayors
Right.
to come
I
and
mean-
talk about the court.
We can have discussions about different ideas. You might want to think about what cases are adjudicated in the village courts, which would alleviate the problem, and what maybe we can take on, and that would be part of it. You can think of, I know that, once I'm forgetting the law where the age of considered for adulthood and child and dictated a more space in the village courts, in all the courts, for how the cells are configured. You had to separate children from adults, whereas the villages don't necessarily have that kind of space. So there are a lot of considerations, and certainly think it's a great idea to figure out how we can perhaps do something.
Not just for age, I mean, we don't even have the room for female. I mean, we have to
Right.
have a matron come and escort a female prisoner. So, those are those concerns as well. The Village of Ardsley, actually, about 6 years ago, did a study when we had the opportunity, when our justice resigned, because that is the time frame when you can think about consolidating the court with the town court. And we did a study. There were a lot of factors that went into our decision not to consolidate with the town court at that time. But I do think that it's something that we really need to think about going forward.
Right, one of the thoughts is, well, let's assume, we're doing the study, but at the same time, why can't we explore a shared service grant application to discuss with the villages possible.
Well, we have to establish what that is
So if
before
the
we.
village-
I'm going to tell you what I think your first step should be. Your first step is to have to get this consultant on board to study the needs of your police department and your court, okay? And then I think the next step there is you figure out what you're doing, right? And as part of that, with a thought in mind that maybe someday the courts could be consolidated, then you come to the villages and you say, what is the possibility of doing this, and have a study then to discuss the consolidation of the court system. But I think your first step here, it sounds like you have to do a lot of work on your police station.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Mayor. That's
Yeah.
you
And
absolutely.
we've had discussions in the past regarding consolidation. Frankly, I don't fully understand why the villages want that extra cost since you're already paying for the town court, if we could accommodate the space. I think it makes an awful lot of sense, since the revenue for the unincorporated comes to the unincorporated area, then revenue from tickets in the villages. I don't see why they don't go back to the villages. I don't think that.
I think Councilman Sheehan, our court actually pays for itself and more. Okay, so it's a revenue stream. It is, honestly. We get a lot of tickets off the thruway. But I agree. I think one of the sticking points of consolidation here is the revenue stream. And, if there is a way, and this is sort of to Paul's point, I'm sorry, Supervisor Viner's point, is to study how the revenue stream could work in a consolidated basis.
Right,
And different
because it's
villages
a
are going to have different perspectives. So Arts is going to have maybe a different perspective from Hastings or Duxbury, whatever, and different needs, and we can tweak it accordingly.
Right, and establishing what the and more is for the villages and how we can negotiate that so that you still have revenue.
Right. But also going down to even the clerks. There's 6 villages, that means there's 12 clerks at least, 12 officers at least. You don't need that all in one location.
Right.
But, the only thing that I possibly may differ with you on is I sort of feel that if I would be like betting, I'd say we'll probably land up moving the court out of the present, campus. That's my prediction. So the thing is,
Clearly something you're
He's a little fixated on that.
I feel that that's going to happen. So the thing is, since I'm pretty optimistic that that's going to happen, I sort of feel why wait for a shared service grant application, because if we might be able to, by the end of this year, make real, do you know what? We moved this building, we got this building within 6 months. We did everything with the town hall within 6 months. We moved from the other side here. So I sort of feel if we start looking at, if we basically are all agree that we have to move the courthouse out, in 8 months, and then we start with the shared service, then we're losing another year. So I feel that if we basically could start working together right now and say, is there any possibility that the villages and the town.
But what if your report comes back and says you're keeping the court where it is.
And there's no extra room.
There is just no extra
Yeah, but
room
we
to do
met,
this.
we met with these firms, and the consensus was that we're going to have to move anyway out.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm
we're
not
gonna
on
wait
this
for the
board,
report.
that's up to
All right.
all you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mayor.
very much,
appreciate it.
Mayor.
Thank you, I
Appreciate it. All
appreciate you.
right.
Good to see you.
Okay, good,
Okay.
okay, that's good.